Welcome once again. Thank you so much. I hope you've managed to get a bit of context around what International Women's Day is all about this year and a bit of history of where we come from and when we started celebrating this beautiful day. So we are going to continue with our program today, and it is my great honor and privilege, and I'm excited to be hosting Zanyiwe. Am I saying it right? Zanyiwe Asare, who is going to talk to us around women in cyber security, right? And so, yeah, it's going to be an interactive session to actually get more. First of all, let's start to get to know who is Zanyiwe. Tell us about yourself, Sissy. Welcome. And happy International Women's Day to you. You're looking glorious, looking beautiful.
Thank you. Happy International Women's Day to you too. And thank you so much for having me today.
Awesome.
I think maybe just to put it out there, it's Zanyiwe Nthatisi Asare.
Okay.
But that's fine. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
But so the question, talk about women in cybersecurity. One, it's a multifaceted or multi-dimensional career path.
Okay.
So I'm a lawyer.
Okay.
So I come in from the legal perspective of all of this. But if we have to now take it back, really just to describe what cyber is. Cyber would be, looking at the digital platforms, looking at, the likes of, let's say, Facebook. So we're talking about social media platforms where people communicate, looking at banking platforms, looking at communication platforms, looking at devices, technology, and literally looking at all the places where, the cyberspace interacts with human beings. So that's essentially what we do. But me in particular, maybe let's zone in.
Yeah,
right?
Beautiful.
So I'm a data processing practitioner or specialist. So I look at all the laws around how people use people's data. So as we would know, how businesses are becoming more profitable now is that they actually go into, getting to understand you as the individual. So what does that actually mean? Right? That means I get to know your name, your age, what are your likes, what are your dislikes, where do you travel, what are the things you do? So in understanding all of that, someone actually needs to pick into your life, but they also do take very personal information about you. The moment that is taken, that means that there's also risk around that. And what are the risks? So we're looking at cyber attacks, we're looking at data breaches, we're looking at people potentially having information that could duplicate you and implicate you in so many things. So we look at the legalities around that from a data protection perspective and also cybersecurity perspective.
Interesting. There's a new, I was thinking about it now with COVID, reality is everybody needs your personal details, ID, what does the law say about that? Are we allowed to actually just share our information and stuff like that, given that it could be stolen, somebody can use it for other things? So what's your perspective on that?
So in principle, they are, in South Africa at least, and globally, the data protection laws are quite similar. But in principle, there are principles upon which data is processed. So really, the overarching themes are accountability, transparency, ensuring that the data subject that you're using understands what you're using the information for. So it must be purpose specific. And you also need to ensure that if there's any kind of breach or any kind of risk, you are informing your data subject. So now when it comes to the likes of COVID and processing for that. So I'm sure people have gone into buildings where you notice there's this book. And you're writing your information. Everybody's got a peek at like your ID number, your cell phone, which if you really think about it, if you take it back to the principles of data protection, it really doesn't balance, it doesn't tally. However, I do need to point out that, in South Africa, we do have until the 1st of July 2021 to be data compliant. So I feel that, people could do better, but from the 1st of July, then there'll be penalties that come, and that's almost life-changing things. So that's an up to 10 million rand fine. That's up to 10 years imprisonment. You open yourself up to civil and criminal liability. So there's so much that's happening that on the 1st of July, people will take more cognizance of how they process data.
So do people have a right to say, I cannot share my ID unless you explain to me what you're going to use it for and stuff?
Correct. So one of the main principles in data processing is purpose specific. So what is the purpose that you need this particular ID number for, or my cell phone number for? And I mean, we do know it's for COVID contact tracing, right? It's out there. And it does, the act itself has a provision to say if it's obviously for, public administration purpose. However, that does not mean that it should not be processed in a way that is legitimate according to the law. So I think what will happen now from the 1st of July is people like myself will get a couple of calls to say, how exactly do we do this? How's the best way we do this? How do we protect our data subjects? Because in a situation like that, you're creating a vulnerability already. I take a snapshot of whatever data is there. What does that now mean for your data subject? So there's a lot of ways. I mean, we've got technology, we've got free apps that actually do all of that stuff. I think people that are data processing, that are getting people in and out of their buildings, need to do it in a more responsible manner.
Awesome. Let's take a step back. We are celebrating International Women's Day, and I believe there are women out there, a young girl who's like, how do I become like you? How do I join cybersecurity or pursue the career in that? So would you mind to share with us, how can one pursue the career that you've pursued?
So, it's a strange one, but I'm gonna say something. I am a mom, so I'm gonna say something quite mommy. Go to school. Go to school, listen to your parents, and actually finish school. I think for me, I was quite in a privileged position to choose what I decided to specialize in, even when I did my postgrad, to go into ICT law. And the only reason why I could do that is because I had my LLB as a base. And there's various careers, as we mentioned in the beginning, in the cybersecurity sector, or where you can decide, if you computer science, or you want to do IT and you want to create software. So I obviously come in from the regulation and legality perspective. One of the questions that I'd asked myself was, if I am going to pursue this law thing, what exactly, what excites me, what invigorates me? And I was fortunate to go to a school where I interacted with computers a lot, and we got to learn about what the future would potentially look like. And I thought to myself, well, what is going to be necessary in a couple of years' time? And it certainly would be, anything to do with ICTs, anything to do with Internet of Things, anything to do with data, because that's where the world was going. And thought, okay, well, someone's going to need a lawyer that does all of that. So that's basically it. But my legal passion, or at least love for it, started when I was 8. I drafted my first contract when I was 8. Girl! I didn't know that's what I was doing.
Wow.
Sure. My dad promised my sister and I bikes, and he didn't do it for a month. So I took a exam pad paper, and I read Quickie pen, and I said, look, you write your name here and you sign here. Basically, for each day you don't give us a bike, you give us 50 Rand each. And he didn't give us a bike for 5 days. So after a while, we had 250 Rand each. And he negotiated to give us 250 Rand together. So we shared that, and we had 2 bikes at the end of the day. So that was my first contract.
Cool. Isn't it amazing? I mean, you just said you're a mommy. Isn't it amazing that some of the talents and the gifts are already there in our children, and they start very young, and we just probably don't see it as that. As you said, when you started writing your own contract as 8, you just didn't know it. And check where you are today. Actually, that's where your career path and your purpose led you to, right? Absolutely. So it's just also, it's amazing to say, all the young women out there, look into your passions, look into the things that you naturally do even now, right? Because that's going to help us to challenge things in the future, right? And prepare for the future in a different way.
I think that's such an important topic, especially on Women's Day. And the reason why I'm saying it's important is, as women, I think we neglect to nurture those aspects of ourselves, or even our parents neglecting to nurture young girls. It's almost like we are nurtured to be nurturers and nothing else. And I think, for instance, with myself, I was quite fortunate to have a father who, just doesn't really see the difference, didn't have a choice. He only had 2 daughters at the time. My younger brother came years after. And my mom's quite a strong woman who does the thing. So I was fortunate to see that, you know, you could literally be whatever you wanted, and whatever it is that you wanted to do, you were pushed on, whatever it is, you were harnessed to do it. And I think it's quite important on a day like this to remember that young girls need that support. They need to be told they're enough. They need to have their ambitions and their dreams anchored through their parents or through people that care for them and love them. And if you ignore them at that point, the rest of the world is going to do that. But if you show them that they're important when they come up with these ideas of who they want to be, when they're formulating their identity, no one will tell them anything outside of their home.
Love that. I love that. You are enough. That is the very foundational. You are enough, and know that you can pursue whatever you want to pursue. So we're saying to all the young girls out there, you can pursue whatever it is that you want to pursue. So let's shift our conversation a bit there into corporate, right? I mean, you know, cyber IT, it's very male dominated and stuff like that, and whatever stereotypes there are out there. How do you see, I mean, how have you navigated those challenges in the corporate world with being in the very male dominated space?
So I don't think it's unique to cyber. I think it's a global issue. We can even call it a global pandemic, really. That needs to be corrected, that needs to be fixed. So when we talk about gender parity in the workplace, really there's an insufficient representation of women everywhere.
100%.
And I think specifically when it comes to, I don't even want to say law, because I think that in itself is a whole different argument and conversation, but let's talk about, you know, cybersecurity, let's speak about data protection.
Yeah.
I think when someone thinks about that, you know, they specifically bunch it with the STEM, like the science, technology, economic, you know, yes. And economically speaking, those are really professions that should be paying people quite well. But even in there, women are still not getting paid when they come into these particular professions. So one, we've got an issue of representation, but two, even when there is representation, the women are being dismally paid, which is a problem, right? So what does that mean? I think the government itself needs to look at specific career projects, so, you know, developing specific, and I know they're doing quite okay with that right now. But I think outside of the government, they creating these job opportunities or saying we want certain people to fill these job opportunities, I think they need to take a step deeper, right? And the reason why I'm saying this is a lot of women don't feel enough to do these. They're already, it's a male-dominated environment. I mean, someone says cyber attack. You're thinking, okay, it's rough, it's an attack, it must be something.
Exactly.
And when someone thinks
get ready to fight.
Exactly. And when someone thinks of a hack or whatever, they're thinking it must be some dude who's sitting at the bottom of a basement somewhere in a hoodie and I mean,
like it is in the movies.
Precisely, because life is exactly like the movies. But there could be women doing the exact same thing who need to unpack it. So I think it would be great to sort of have, I wouldn't say career expert per se, but you take young girls in to show them that, guys, this is it. You know, once you unpack something or you open someone's mind to a specific concept or career path, it becomes more approachable. And I think that's what we need to do. We need to start making things more approachable for young girls. Yeah.
Amazing. This morning as I was driving, I was actually thinking of an initiative around Take a Girl Child to School. I was like, that was such an amazing, you know, initiative, because we had all these young girls from high school coming into corporate, just, you know, shadowing us for a day, you know, and that for me was empowering in one or the other, because as you say, the minute we expose them earlier on, then we're giving them options, right?
Absolutely.
And we actually increase, you know, opening up their perspective into you know, opportunities and careers like IT, cybercrime. Personally, I didn't even know that one can pursue a career like that. So it's amazing that, you know, through that, the more we expose young girls, the more they'll actually be able to know options, have more options, and have better choices.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So do you want to tell us a bit about what you're doing in your space currently as well? Just so as we get to know more, if people want to get more of your services or get information around you, you know, on what you do.
So, I mean, right now is a special time in South Africa's journey to becoming, you know, data protection compliant. So if you look at, let's say, the Protection of Personal Information Act that's come up now in South Africa, that's going to be enacted on the 1st of July, fully rather, with the punitive measures, so to say. That's really South African government's attempt to protecting citizens from cyber attacks and poor data protection processes and practices. Now, what we do as a company is we would come into your company to assist you to become compliant. So we would start first with understanding where are you in your path. Are some of your practices already data protection compliant? Because some people really, the way they do run their businesses, they don't have much to do from a compliance perspective. And some people, exactly like the book that we described, everything is out there for anybody to take whenever they like. So that's one of the things that we do. We also have a program that essentially helps people pivot. So let's say you have a company that's completely off the digital space. You don't have website, you don't have any type of automation in your company, in your business. We would then assist with figuring out what you would need to optimize your efficiency from a technology perspective. We also, draft policy just to ensure that whatever it is that you do as a company, everybody in your company understands. So if you decide that you're going to become POPI compliant, which everyone has to, you don't have a choice, we do the training and awareness there. After doing the training and awareness, we put it in policy so that your HR and your labor law rules and regulations speak to that, so that if anyone does anything that goes against what you've established or implemented as a company, there are punitive measures for that particular individual. Because a lot of the times people say, this is what we've done, but you ask someone in the company, oh, do you know XYZ? And say, no. That's not good enough. The information regulator will need you to train each and every one in your company to ensure that you're protecting your data subjects. That's part of what we do. I mean, we travel quite a bit. For instance, we're having a data protection law conference in Namibia next week, actually. Oh, wow. And we're doing something similar in Zambia in May. So we, do training and awareness on data protection, speak to different regulators, just try and get Africa data compliant. That's really where the future's going and looking. And if we start on the right foot, then we're basically creating an economic revenue generator for Africa.
Beautiful. It's interesting that I think, yes, maybe when the kind of law is coming into play, they're like, Bobby's coming, and we're like, who is Bobby? So it's shocking that we're here, right? And that you guys are doing an amazing job to actually raise awareness. I guess there's still lots and lots of awareness to be done around this act. So as people are ready for it, I guess we talk about it, but now as you're saying, we need to ensure that you have put things in place, especially in corporates. We are like, it's coming, we'll just make things happen when it's there. But I guess the reality is it's here, and we need to make sure that we comply to it, and because it has a benefit at the end. Right.
Absolutely.
Awesome. So what is it that you'd like to choose to challenge as we wrap up this beautiful conversation? What are you choosing to challenge? Yeah.
So I think my hashtag today, my choose to challenge is choose to challenge yourself.
Yeah.
A lot of the times we actually doubt ourselves. Other people believe in us, and then you like, really, you think I'm like that, or you think I'm capable of doing that?
Yeah.
And a lot of the times you really are. You actually are. And I think just to challenge, to take a risk on yourself. That's it. If you take a risk on yourself, to take that jump, that leap of faith, I mean, what's the worst that could happen? You fall, dust yourself up, and you get up again.
Wow. How is that? Hashtag choose to challenge yourself. That's it. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Zanyiwe, for your insights, for your inspiration. I mean, you've already inspired us to challenge ourselves. And thank you so much, and continue making the difference in the space of cybersecurity. And let's empower more women and lift as we rise. I guess that's what is very critical.
Lift as we rise. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.